Hello and welcome to the downtown core of London. Now we're going to do a bit of a loop around here to discover what, as I started this vlog a little bit earlier than this introduction, is that there's far more history and far more places and knick-knack areas that I would love to share with you guys. So this might be a multi-part vlog. There's going to be some bars. There's going to be some student memories as I used to go to this, or I used to live in this city for several years during my schooling days or my college days. And yeah, it's been a while since I've been back, so it's fascinating to discover it once again and all the development that's been going on, as there's been a fair amount in the last couple of years. Welcome to London City Hall. However, unfortunately, we can't give you a perspective of this. So let's take a look at the Courtyard, which is one of the better features of this very unique building. Centennial Hall is actually pretty famous in London because it's featured some major shows, including Radiohead, which performed in this very theater during the Ben's tour, which would have been fantastic to see, and also right before OK Computer. I'm a fan of Radiohead, in case you haven't been able to tell. And then, of course, we have City Hall itself, uniquely constructed with public housing as part of the actual complex that we're in here in the central courtyard. So we have a apartment complex, theater, and City Hall all in one. Very civil thinking. Okay, we're actually inside City Hall here. Tried to get into the council chamber, but we can't get in, unfortunately. Something going on, he says. I figured I'd give you a quick look at what it looks like inside the lobby, including all the changes that are happening here too. Welcome to Victoria Park, right next to City Hall, featuring a band shell and essentially London Central Park, which has a lingering memory for me for being overrun with homeless the last time I was here, and this was pre-pandemic. So luckily it's a little bit for better wears for now, but as we'll discuss in many points in this vlog, London has seen better times that it's seen in its recent history. Party seems to be over here. I've missed it. There's a lot of events that takes place in this park, including Ribfest and the Gus Macker basketball tournament, which is relatively famous in these parts of the world, really southwestern Ontario. Noticing the sidewalks are purple here, purple hash marks. I believe that is in solidarity with Western, which is the school colors. It is just a week past Frost Week. It's purple coming out right there. This is a purple town. And this is Richmond Row, where all the university students come for responsible libations. Many places of which don't exist anymore, but many which do. Richmond Row features some of the more boutique fashion outlets for irresponsibly spending students, and some back alley bars. Well, it appears the Barking Frog still exists, but it's conjoined with another new incarnation of what was an entire complex is now seemed to be split into two. You have the Barking Frog in the back, which is a massive college bar. We won't be celebrating with the kids today. It's their peak season, but we won't be taking part. Being one of the largest cities in the country and historically significant to its overall development, we have some interesting constructions and heritage buildings that have been preserved in unique ways, and I'm just fascinated by this particular coach house in the back here, just off of Richmond Row, that has a pathway that leads to a modern construction on this side. I find that quite refreshing how they've preserved that building for future use and rent, really, for probably students, but it's nice to see it preserved. There are plenty of unique constructions here, as you can see. Well, I'm at Barney's / the Seeps, this famous patio bar that's actually wrapping up after this weekend, apparently. It's the summer season, or it's the early part of the school season, so that's kind of unusual. Usually it kind of goes till October, but this patio gets crazy at this time of year, so no doubt they want to pack it into the inside over here. It's a beautiful patio that's really evolved over the years. It was really just like an empty space when I first started coming here many years ago, and now it's fully grown into a very lush environment. It would be much crazier this evening, but we won't be here for that. And the interaction in the street front is actually excellent, since it actually faces right onto the street. Seen some fair share of shenanigans here at this bar over the years, but those are many years past. There is no bar that I have frequented more and still insist on frequenting whenever I come to this town than the Seeps, my favorite bar in London, which is actually attached to Barney's, which we just came from. Sadly, we probably won't be going inside there today. Maybe a little bit later we'll come back for a visit, but if I go inside, I always have to have a drink, and we have to pace it out on this vlog. This is the most famous bar in London. It is the homecoming bar, the official homecoming bar that alumni gather towards whenever they arrive, especially for homecoming. Now, there's not much to Richmond Row aesthetically here, as you can see, as I finish the tour of the northern portion. Now, there's been many bars that have come and gone, many establishments and businesses that have come and gone, but essentially the nature of this place has remained the same, except for a few exceptions that I can provide a little insight into. Including on the right, which is the old London North train station, which since had turned into a nightclub known as The Shot, along with another famous nightclub in its basement called The Base, which are long and gone. After that time, and as per its current look, it became a keg steakhouse and bar, and now it's long since closed, even though you can still see the bespoke patio and everything. I will mention I used to work there back in the day. Unfortunately, it's gone now. Another notorious spot on this block is Molly Bloom's, an authentic Irish pub located in the basement of this office complex. Really one of the best places to get a little live music and a late night tipple on Richmond Row. And it's long been standing. It's been around for over 20 years now. because we're in a university town, there's also a lot of great street food in this area, including which used to be known as Sammy's Trailers, that served your late night indulgences, but now they've actually been sold off into separate carts or separate establishments, but at least they're still here. The fun kind of ends at this portion of Richmond as the establishments get much smaller as they lead towards, ironically, the university, which is just north of here. You wouldn't think there was much life to this area coming down here in the daytime. It really does look like just a generic commercial area. But from what I know, it does get bumping later on. At least it was when I was younger. I did say this wasn't going to be a pub crawl, but I can't really go by Winks and not go out for a quick drink. One of the best values in all of Richmond Row, right here. Highly recommended. Okay, once again, not a pub crawl video, but unfortunately I can't resist temptation. It's the early part of my day anyway, so we're gonna get this out of the way and enjoy one more pint here at Winks. We'll see you in a moment. So as mentioned, there are some very cool establishments here, including the Runt Club, which is one of the nicer little places on Albert Street, off the beaten path from the student run. And then you also have Los Lobos, which regretfully used to be known as the Alex B. Keaton and is now turned over into a Mexican-styled cantina / restaurant, which I'm sure is delightful because it's on Talbot Street, which is really where nice establishments end up on in London. We're also now heading towards an area of town that has significantly changed since I've been here last, as there are many high-rises as there was not before. A lot has changed in this little section of London so substantially, I barely recognize it. Now, most of these developments are condos to house students mainly. I hate to say it, but that's just the truth of the matter, even though some of these buildings are impressive. London has not been without its difficulties as well, as it is a industrial city that has seen a lot of its industrial establishments leave town, chief among them being a GM manufacturing plant for trains. There is, however, still some major manufacturers in town, including Hyundai, among others. A brilliant brutalist building here, which is the London Courthouse. I have been inside. I've had my own case in there one time. It was a traffic ticket. The main reason why we're down here is because London is full of fascinating older structures here. If you really want a taste of what a Canadian city was like in the turn of the 19th century, let's say, 20th century, then you have no better place to come than London. That is full of brilliant examples of the architecture of the time and still has preserved somewhat a character and feel of what an old outpost town used to be, as London was really the midway stop between Detroit and York, now known as Toronto, but has since grown due to its university and industrial past, or its education and industrial past. What you see here is the London Museum. It's a modern art gallery / museum that has existed here for many years. London was built along the Thames, appropriately named enough, and it's right here. There are plenty of great vantage points to enjoy what is a river very reminiscent of its namesake on the other side of the Atlantic, as it's a fairly shallow river with not much to it as far as aesthetic purposes are concerned. In fact, it looks like they're basically digging up the river in the background. The flats you see before you on the right are where concerts take place during Rock the Park and other summer festival events. You can get a good example of the old and the new on the other side here, as you see sort of like older structures commingled with new ones. London's always been really good at kind of keeping that aesthetic original to the city itself. However, the new high-rises that you see in the background are, with the exception of one in the middle, newer constructions. There are some nicely preserved bridges in London as well. If you like old industrial age bridges, as we head from west to east back into the original sort of core of what London is downtown wise, you're going to see a transition from the forest city aspect of this town, as it's known as, to a way more industrial slash working town, working city. One of the most important things to point out, however, on our tour is the old London jail, full of history, inclusive of the Black Donnelly history, which we really should come back and have an in-depth look at how that relates to the core of what this city developed into in the 1800s, as it was a significant period of its past and has fortunately been well preserved here in the form of its original jailhouse. This town has been in transition for quite some time, including the time that I went here a decade or two ago. I won't really reveal it, but its heyday is long behind it, unfortunately, even in modern times, of which I was here. As you can see, the back alleys here, just off of Talbot, are full of riches, of relics of the past, including bars that, or taverns and saloons, which used to dominate this place, and which is understandably so, considering that it was basically a spot where people stopped along their travels to their next destination, be it either Toronto or Detroit, Chicago, wherever it was that they were headed. And thus you have areas that are struggling to balance nature, trying to take it back. We're also in an area of a very notorious bar back in the day called the Rideout, of which I used to frequent, at least for the first year of my university days before it was gone. Actually, the first 3 years. Since most of these establishments are now closed, I won't really bother to show you stuff that doesn't exist anymore. However, just ahead of us, we have Budweiser Gardens. London's former largest hotel, at least downtown for many years, from say the 1900s onwards, was originally located on this spot, the Talbot Hotel, and instead of renovating it into another hotel, they decided to gut the building and transform it into what is the Budweiser Gardens now. And also another place that I used to work, as a matter of fact, which is deserving of a tour of itself. So stay tuned for an arena tour, because we definitely should probably do one. Home of the London Knights, and then directly across the street you have the Covent Garden Market, which we'll head inside right now before hitting Richmond Row proper. This is a reconstruction of the original market that was on this site that I oddly did not actually visit when I was here back in the day.
Okay, you're like trying to get me ready.
They've actually evolved this place somewhat to have takeout food and other options which were not available previously, so it's actually evolved fairly well. This walkway was established a while ago, about 2 decades ago, to revitalize the downtown core of what is Richmond and Dundas, the main intersection of London. In fact, this whole area was earmarked to be a pedestrian-only concourse. As you can see by the pavement, they've kind of put that in place, but has since allowed traffic to still come through. Although back in the days that I was here, it was a regular street. The revitalization project hasn't really worked to plan. This used to be the location of King's Mills, one of the storied, famous department stores in London that's now unfortunately not found a new life. And we're going to carry on Richmond Street eastward, back towards where we're parked as we get ready to go to the university. This is a section of Richmond. Just ahead is Richmond Row. As you can see, it's extended into this area as well. This used to be the heart of London, and now it is sadly the death of it. A lot of these places are still here from when I was here as a kid. Some have survived. Rock of Universe unfortunately just left us. The paving has definitely revitalized the feel of this area, but as far as the businesses are concerned, no improvements to be found. The London Music Hall of Fame has survived, however. Despite all of that, they've still managed to sandwich in a couple of interesting looking condos in the middle of the street here. What you see here is the location of what was originally one of the best theaters in Canada. Old-time movie house, hippodrome if you will, that is no longer there anymore. There's been so much rapid transition in this town from the glory days of the past that are still hidden in certain areas. However, you do have to travel in order to find them. They're not centralized like they used to be. Instead, you got More of this nowadays. I really do think this is going to be a two-part vlog, as there's going to be a lot that I'm going to miss in this initial tour of London. And I want to keep things positive. This area behind us here used to be the site of a large mall called Smuggler's Alley, which was long since demolished and has still not been replaced with any development. Across the street you had what was originally known as the Galleria Mall, which is now known as City Plaza, and is nowhere near its original vision of a downtown shopping center, as you're about to find out. Even since the days of when I originally came here, this mall, from the day of its construction till today, has remained relatively empty and unsuccessful. At what stage what used to be a Eaton Center or a Eaton's Mall location has long since been replaced with a public library, in fact the Central Library of London, which is located just over there, and is now a mixed-use business park commercial center. Even the Tim Hortons that was located in here on the right, that I quite enjoyed for its efficiency, has not survived. It's not all doom and gloom for establishments that I used to love, as the Scots Corner, one of my favorite pubs in London, still going strong. And I will admit, we may end our vlog today at this particular location. Now we are somewhat obliged to cover one of the largest, or the largest building in the town, and that would be in front of you right now. One London Place. Tallest building in the city, constructed in the 90s. One of the best examples of London preserving its past is the Delta Armories, the hotel that you see in front of you now. Reconfigured from an old armory house, military purposes, and the military past of this city is deserving of a vlog in its own right. But fortunately, Delta had the good wherewithal to preserve this excellent classical example of modernist medieval architecture. Now is one of the best hotels, if not the best one, in the city, inclusive of a pool inside and other amenities. We have come to the notorious location when I lived here, and a slang term that everyone will know that has lived in London or still does to this day, and it's EOA, East of Adelaide. East of Adelaide Street in London downtown represents the older sort of turn of the century area, of which was at one point a bustling center of commerce and taverns and nightlife, and as you'll see now is nowhere near that today. In fact, it is almost a bit of a ghost city compared to even Richmond Row or Richmond Street further down. There are many a handful of closed businesses along this area, to the point that I don't know if it'll ever actually recover from what it once was. You have the Eloian Hall, which is actually one of the few places that's tried to reestablish a nightlife here and has had many interesting independent concerts over the years. But as you can see, what used to be the heart of the city and the heart of the history of this city is now, as I said, a ghost town. This is also the end of our vlog, as just beyond here on the western, or sort of on the southern side of Dundas Street that I'm on now, is the Western Fairgrounds, which is the host of my next vlog. So definitely join me for that. It's certainly going to be a much different atmosphere than what we have here. It's a bit of an abrupt end to this video, as the homeless problem in this city, it really is not great, and this, I don't really want to show too much of that and kind of keep this as, forgiving and understandable and respectful of the people that are in this area as well, in the lower end of their luck. So yeah, it's certainly something that needs to be addressed. It's been going on for quite some time, as mentioned in the early part of the video, and yeah, here's hoping that they find a solution in some time near future. So that's all I'm going to say. It's definitely a two-parter. We'll definitely be back for another section, because there's a lot more insight into this town that I did not cover, and I'd like to do in another separate video, including the university. But for now, we're going to take it slow at 40, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for dropping in. I couldn't resist the temptation to come back here one last time to Scott's Corner, get a final little tipple, because it was a little bit of a dark end previously to the vlog. But it hasn't escaped from the fact that this London has changed, and I need to do another vlog for you guys to kind of give you a real insight into what my observations of what the city has been over the years. Great little bar, great place to end your evening. This is a to be continued, because there's a lot much more to the story of this town that I need to tell, at least from my observations of it from the last 25 years. It's very disappointing, and hopefully there's a brighter future eventually for London, Ontario.